to do so you don't have to go through a hearing. And part of it is, y'all know who the ARC is? Maybe we should start.
Yes.
We've been around for a long time.
These are all new people for me.
You want me to add to that? Want me to add some context to that?
Sure.
So, ARC's been around since 1950, started by parents many, many years ago, mainly moms, who fought for services for their loved ones. So back in those days, you had a kid with a disability, you would go towards the school system, they'd basically say, we don't have anything for your kid, take your kid home. So those moms, mainly moms, fought for our service delivery system as it exists
Part of it
today.
is,
The county board of developmental disabilities were originally schools, and then they became the county boards in 1967. So that's just a little history of. And the ARC of Ohio is part of the ARC of the United States. So at the federal level, we have a lot of legislative advocacy that's done on a national platform, I guess you would say.
so what we're going to talk about this evening are Medicaid and Medicaid waivers primarily. So just to understand the structure, Medicaid is 60% funded by the federal government, and your Medicaid card or the Medicaid managed care thing is 60% federal, 40% state. Your waiver is 60% from Washington and 40% mostly from the county board. Some people have the 40% paid by the state of Ohio. But
Come on in.
Hey, come on in. So what I always tell people is follow the money if you kind of want to know, but the county is not allowed to use money as an excuse. Just like in special ed. If you need something, they're not supposed to use the lack of money. Yeah, but they do, but they're not supposed to. Because if you have a waiver, your child's been determined to meet the eligibility, and depending on the waiver you have, so if you have the level 1 or the self waiver, you've got a finite budget. Did everyone know that as of January 1st, your budgets all went up? Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yes.
so if you have an adult on the level 1 or the self, you're close to $62,000 a year.
So can I tie that back into why that has increased too? So Ohio has a 2-year budget cycle, okay? So a lot of work goes into advocating for what we call wage increases for our direct care workers. So we spent, about a year and a half, Gary and I get the pleasure of sitting at the table with many organizations, Medicaid, the State Department, the County Board Association, which represents the county boards, and then organizations like OPRA, which is Ohio Provider Resource Association, and OHCA, which is the Ohio Healthcare Association. So we were all united in our approach to the legislature to get wages up. We were asking for a 50% increase. We got 38, which is historic, but that ties into your budget, because if we were paying people more, but your budget was still the same, you would get less services. So it's important that those are aligned, okay?
So the level 1 and the self,
I
the
think
cap
they're
went up about
right.
38%. But if you're on the IO waiver, all the funding ranges also went up 38%.
That's why
And
that's important.
we're hearing things like some families have said, my services just got cut. Well, they shouldn't get cut from last year because the budgets all went by the same percentage.
And is that on your annual date, or is that effective of January 1?
Effective January 1.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. So,
And then there'll be another increase as far as the wage stuff component of 8%. But
so
be
it's
careful.
38 in total.
Yeah. Be careful, because you can't take an increase of 30% and then add another 8% on top of that. You have to back up to what the wage was in December, or the rate structure, and go back to that and do the 30.8 and then the additional.
So independents would have got the raise automatically.
Yes.
If you work for an agency, most agencies are supposed to get to an average rate of $18 an hour. But some agencies pay benefits. So if they're paying benefits, it might not be 18. And an average means someone could get 16 and someone could get 20. So it's an average, but everyone should go up. David's on a few committees to make sure it goes up. We're doing a survey with the state at the end of the year. But we're doing kind of unofficial surveys now. And because the agencies are independent companies, they're allowed to do what they're going to do. But frankly, we're going to publish who didn't give raises. And if we have to embarrass, we'll embarrass.
Yeah,
You know,
so
if they're businesses and they're not paying, we're going to let everyone know.
yeah, so every certified provider in our system, independent agency, we are mandated to follow guidelines from the state. So what that means is if they request data from me as an agency, and I have to complete that survey. It used to be called an NCI survey of National Core Indicators because we wanted to compare what's going on in Ohio to other states, because we always like to do that to see how we rate against, you know, Alabama or whoever. Because we're also trying to keep track of nationwide trends too, of what's going on. So we've taken that survey and we've modified it to fit questions that we want answers to. Like if you did not give that to your staff in a direct raise in a wage, did you offer additional vacation, some sort of benefits, health insurance, those kind of things? And the sad thing is about in our system, 44% of our staff are actually on Medicaid services. So it's a tricky line, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm trying to explain how sometimes the staff will say to people, well, if you give me that $2 an hour raise, you're hurting me over here. I'm losing my benefits. So where's the line at? So I think there's just.
So you had a question too.
I live in Coshocton County. The DSPs at the agencies, they're only making right now after the wage $14 an hour. Tyler has an agency for 20 hours a month for respite, and his DSP is only making 14. She begged for a raise, and they're not getting it. They don't even pay mileage.
Okay.
Yes, and some agencies, especially the faith-based ones that have a church behind them,
Yes.
some are like that, and then some actually gave raises in October. So that because they had the cash, because the church was funding it, those people didn't see an increase in January. But yeah, they should be, like, we were able to raise our direct support staff to $16.55, but then you've got the add-ons. So if you're serving someone with behavior, right now you're getting over $3 extra an hour. If you're supporting someone that has a complex care need, it's basically someone that can't roll over, that's an extra $3-something an hour.
Now, are agencies allowed to get the add-ons?
Yes.
Because I'm pretty sure that the agency is getting an add-on. I need to verify that.
Okay.
They're not giving it to the staff.
And there are some agencies that do that, and that's when we have to, as families, out them.
Just what?
It's
Just like tell them to go look elsewhere?
no, out them means we tell people they're not doing it. This is a competitive market.
Right.
And if this agency is not giving, so if you're getting an extra $3 an hour
Yes.
as an agency and you're not passing it on,
Yes.
I would wonder whether I should use that agency.
Exactly.
You know, so if they're paying $13 an hour, but they're giving you health insurance, that's different.
But
If
is that,
it's
But-
just
but
13,
is that not become an issue with the shortage of providers to switch agencies?
well, it depends on the DSP
Yeah.
as well.
I mean,
Yeah, we
You
talk
know-
about that a lot in our system.
because there may not be a lot of agencies that you can
Sure,
use in the
and-
county.
I mean, there's a reason why in Ohio there's over 11,000 independent providers.
Right.
And when I say that, I'm talking about all 7 waivers in Ohio. There's 7 total Medicaid waivers. Now, we always talk about the 3,
Yeah,
because that's the ones that we're talking about when the funding comes from the county boards, and that's the 3 developmental disability waivers, which is the level 1 self and the IO. But in Ohio, there's 7 total waivers. So they're all Medicaid waivers. So they're all driven by Medicaid, which has the agreement with CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. But DODD is given permission to run the 3 waivers, which is through the county boards.
So if, I say if Walmart is paying 16 and Target's paying 14, who do you think I'm gonna work for?
Exactly, and
Yes.
that's what I tell the DSP, you have to shop around.
And they always have the opportunity to become an independent, but they're scared because often they've signed a non-compete clause. They're not gonna enforce that. That's a scare.
Isn't it provider right, provider choice?
Yes, and so agencies get, and independents get a different amount based on where they live, but it's pennies. It's not a lot of adjustment. The other thing, the state of Ohio is contracting with a company now called Deloitte to redo the whole rate structure, to eliminate the developmental disability profile. So getting back to the level 1 and the self waiver have a budget.
Yes.
That's what you got to work with. The IO waiver, those of you who have an IO waiver, those funding ranges went up. But what's different with the IO waiver is if you're at the top of your funding range and you need something above that funding range, you have the legal right to ask for a prior authorization to go above the funding range. The law says that you have a right to, so I'm at, and this is not the funding range, but I'm at $30,000. And my kid really needs more hours. I just have to submit that to the county. The county has to submit it to the state. And over 90% of the time, the state approves going above the funding range. The county board can't block it. They have to send it, and then they can send any evidence they want. Well, no, Dave's health and safety is just fine. But if you need it, but going back to how do I avoid hearing is providers don't have any rights at all. So those of you who are independents don't have a right. I got a call from a parent in a very rural county that I won't name, and the services were cut. And she said, well, my provider's going to appeal. Providers don't have the right to appeal. Parents don't have the right to appeal unless they're the guardian or what's called the legally authorized representative. So I'm gonna pass out.
Is not a parent automatically the legally authorized?
No, a parent of a minor child is,
Yeah.
but not the
Okay.
parent of an adult.
What
So
if you're the payee?
That's,
That
it
doesn't matter
So,
either.
And a POA doesn't help.
no, well, you really, so this one, if you're a legal guardian, and we'll talk about how you appeal, but if you're a legal guardian, make sure you got your paperwork to prove you're a legal guardian. We can pass these out. But this is a form that the Department of Medicaid approved. So Dave was explaining all waivers that we're talking about tonight are through the county board that is supervised by the Department of Developmental Disabilities, that is supervised by the Department of Medicaid. So there are two types of hearings. One's called an administrative hearing through your superintendent. Don't go that route. If your SSA's told you something, they've gotten approval from the higher ups in the county. If you need a hearing, and we're going to get to that, go directly to the Department of Medicaid. This form, this is for people that have not been declared incompetent. So if you're the legal guardian, you have a right to appeal. If your adult son or daughter, which means they're at least 18, does everyone have kids over 18? Okay. If they're at least 18 and you're not the legal guardian, even though you can't, everyone's competent until a judge says they're not competent. So they can sign this statement saying, Dave is my authorized representative. It gives you the legal authority to represent them. And sometimes when you begin the hearing process, they're going to ask you, what authority do you have? So being mom or dad is not enough today. Sometimes they let it pass, but a lot of times now they're saying, what legal authority do you have to appeal? this is the document.
Just to stop it.
This document, even though it's a Department of Medicaid document, will also work when you're applying for Social Security benefits. They're a lot easier sometimes to deal with, but I keep this.
They usually provide a
right.
form, but.
But know that your adult son or daughter is giving you authority, but they can also fire you.
Yeah.
Oh, the child, the word,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. So this is
Yeah.
temporary authority.
So does this also apply to like, talking to like Medicaid or Medicare about like the insurance, medical payments and such?
Yes.
And does this have an expiration date?
That was
Only
the question.
when your son says you're no longer.
Okay.
Because the doctor's office makes me do it yearly.
Yes.
Makes him sign yearly.
Yeah, they're probably having to sign what's called a HIPAA release
Yeah.
and some other things. So, this was honestly developed for old people, for people like me that didn't want to go to the Job and Family Services office because it's too cold out. You know, and I was like, my daughter's going to go for me. Lauren can go. You're not that you're old man, but it gives authority for someone else you trust to represent you to government because it's either cold out or I don't feel like it.
Does
But
this need to be certified
No,
somewhere?
no.
No.
So if we would call them, and they don't want to talk to us, we can just scan this to them?
Uh-huh.
and say,
Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah, if they don't
Show
bring
it
it
to them
up,
on Zoom.
if they don't bring it up, I wouldn't bring it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is just to be prepared.
Is this for anybody or just the DD?
No, I've got another one for DD if you want it.
Ah.
So-
This one's for anybody, right?
No, this
Yeah,
is
because
for
it's
government.
Right.
This is for state and federal government, Medicaid.
Okay.
This
I
is
wasn't gonna go there, but I can.
Well, this
Wow.
form
Probably
can be
works for
used for
job and family
JFS,
services.
Medicaid, and
Right.
any designee of Medicaid, which then includes DODD.
So while we're on the subject, and I'm not getting to where I was gonna go, but.
No, I know, that's okay.
So.
This is pretty
why don't I
typical
go-
of our meetings.
So, about 10 years ago, we had lots and lots of adults with disabilities being declared incompetent.
Yes.
Schools often say, hey, go get guardianship. So we worked with the state to change the law. You can do that route if you want. This that I'm passing around only applies to the county boards and the Department of Developmental Disabilities. But again, if a judge hasn't said you're incompetent, you're competent. State law allows, so let's say if David's a person that's on a waiver, but David doesn't want to go to the ISP meeting, he can sign this document that authorizes me as his best friend to go for him. Or if David can't read, but he wants to know what it's in his file, this gives me the authority at a county level to look at his file because he's given me permission. And again, he can fire me at any time. But so the law is on,
You can also,
reference to the laws on one side. The form was developed by the legal department of the Ohio Department of DD. So like Becky, you're Eric's guardian.
Yeah, I am.
You don't need this.
okay, question, can they also use this to look in the IEP?
No, it only applies to the Department of DD and the county boards.
Okay.
So it doesn't apply if your kid's 19 and in special ed. It doesn't apply to Social Security. You would use the other form. But it avoids having to have someone declared incompetent.
Can you send these
okay.
to me? I'm getting people asking me online for a copy, so if you,
Sure, most of this is on the Arc of Ohio website, but we'll make sure it's
Okay.
under resources.
It's under the resources tab.
Okay.
so.
But it's interesting that this has been around for over 10 years.
Never saw it.
Your SSA won't probably know this exists.
No.
But it gives whomever I say the authority. And the law is cited on here. It's a state law that the Department of Developmental Disabilities and the ARC work together to get passed. So that we don't have to, because people with intellectual disabilities still know what they want. And in most cases, hospitals have a duty to care for you. You know, if I show up at the emergency room, and this is a big fear for families, they're going to take care of you. You know, they're not gonna say, hey, I'm not gonna fix your arm just because you can't tell me your arm's broken. I'm gonna fix it. So that's that. One of the many ways to avoid going to the hearing process is knowing how to ask for what you need. So a lot of times, we don't really know what to ask for, and a lot of times, many of our service and support administrators or SAs are recent college graduates, and if I'm 22 or 23, I don't necessarily want you to know that I don't know what I'm doing.
Exactly.
So sometimes I'll make it up.
Thank you.
You know, it's just, so the first thing you need to do is know more than the people you're talking to. So I've asked Dave if he will talk to you a little bit about the rules, and we say a lot on Becky's Facebook page.
Show me the
Show
rules.
me the rules. So you need to familiarize
Becky t-shirt.
yourself with the rules. There's a rule for everything. But,
Sure.
so where do you go to? Not,
You're right.
Yeah.
You don't want me to go too far.
No, where do you go? Yeah,
All right.
Lauren.
Is it possible when you're doing these examples, if, like, not everyone's on, DD waiver, so you guys are on the
Home care.
Home care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like include that stuff in.
Okay, so the hearing process is exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the Medicaid rules are harder to read than the Department of DD rules.
So I'll give you an example.
Yes.
If they denied a home modification for a driveway, like the
Right.
gravel driveway and the wheelchair can't access
Oh,
it. They
okay.
deny it.
The same example you can use on both sides.
Okay.
Okay. So a denial, waivers cannot be used for general purposes. So a driveway would benefit the entire family. So we've helped a family in a southern county who has a daughter in a wheelchair. She would probably go either way, on a DD waiver or a home care waiver, but they live in the country and have a gravel driveway. And the county board said, we're not paying for the driveway. What we were able to do was get this sounds a walkway for a wheelchair. We were able to get approved a path that was blacktopped from the front door to the road so she could get on the school bus and actually get the mail. That's allowable, but again, it's a perfect example. You gotta know what you asked for. You can't ask for something that's gonna benefit the entire family. So if your child has asthma, you can ask for an air purifier or an air conditioner in their bedroom. You dealt with this with Florida. But you can't ask for central air. It has to be, which is stupid. That means I'm gonna make my kids sit in their bedroom all the time. But one of the basic understandings we all have to grasp with is Medicaid is welfare.
Yes.
It is what it is. So we've got to be able to maneuver it. Any request can't be for general purposes. It can't benefit the whole family. And if they ramp in the front door, they're not gonna ramp in the back door.
I
You
had
know?
that issue. They moved a lift for me and wouldn't put a ramp up for the front door. And they said, well, we bought you the lift, and I proved to them that they did not buy the lift.
Right,
I had had private funding from the county that bought the lift.
Right.
It was not from,
right.
it was the Lower Foundation actually that built
Yes.
Happy Day School. They
Right.
didn't.
Right.
And so they eventually did do my ramp for me.
But knowing how to ask, and I'd let you talk about the rules, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, it's all
Where
good.
to
I think
find
we
the
wanted to
rules.
answer that question for her, because again, being
Right.
on the home care waiver, which is a little different than the DD side,
So where do I go to
So,
find
where do you
rules?
go to find rules when we're talking about the 3 DD waivers? You want to go to something called DODD, which is short for Department of Developmental Disabilities, Rules in Effect.
I
Okay?
Google Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities.
Just if you type in a Google search thing, DODD, Rules in Effect, it will take you right where you want to go to, okay?
Or if you're dumb like me,
Ohio.gov.
Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, and then click on rules, and then click on rules in effect.
Okay.
Because you know how to do it, and I don't.
It's a blue box.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, so,
box.
and
No
once
blue
you're there,
boxes.
you're going to see a huge list of rules, and a lot of those rules, they'll be broken down into what I like to call categories. So when you first look at the first rule, they'll start with like 5, 1, 2, 3, and you'll see rules that are around things like background checks, which are important, provider certification for independents and agencies. What you want to do is, if you're looking for rules around things like transportation, homemaker personal care, shared living, that is in a section called 5123-9.
So keep scrolling down, Becky.
Scroll down.
This is what the page will look like.
Yeah.
And then you just have to go to, and I'm upside down, the forms and rules, and it comes up this, and then kind of scroll around and you find it.
Right.
Yeah, and then there's also a period of time when we have rules that are open. So every 5 years, they come up for review, and they'll be in kind of a different section. It's important to pay attention. So do you guys are you on the department site to get alerts when those rules come out? So I would recommend that. We send them out. Becky probably sends out stuff too.
I do.
But try to pay attention to those things.
They need to
Pay
be
attention.
on your bulletin.
Right. And they don't often make sense to most regular people.
I spend a tremendous amount of my time looking at rules every day. I have to reread them because somebody will call me or call Gary and say, you got to understand these are individuals we're talking about, and the circumstances for each person is different. So Mary Ann might call me and say, well, I've got this situation and I got this provider coming in on Fridays, and you have to kind of look at those rules to see what's allowed and what is not allowed.
It's just, if you read through them,
Yep.
but know where they are. If it doesn't make sense, call us and we'll help you. So
I spend a lot
homemaker
of my time in
personal
them.
care is the number one thing. That's the staff person. But it also has a rule on what are SSA supposed to do? What are SAs supposed to do? And it's like playing Monopoly. You need to know what the rules are. Those are the rules. And for the home care waiver, call us. It's easier than to, because
Okay.
they're all over the place. Becky knows. She's gone and looked.
I screwed up big time. I looked in the ORC,
Right.
Ohio Revised Code, and this is a cool rule. Let me post
So you
it.
have a couple sections. You have OAC, Ohio Administrative Code. You have
Big
ORC.
trouble I got into.
So would they be specific to Ohio though? Like
Yes.
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 Yeah, the OAC and the ORC.
So for your case in the home care waiver, you wanna kind of Google 5160 series rules.
So I
Okay.
posted this rule, and I got phone calls out of Columbus saying this is a Medicaid rule, not a DODD
Right.
rule. And yeah, I got big trouble.
So in understanding the
But it
history of
happens.
it really has been a movement. Parents of children and adults with developmental disabilities have had a lot of power. Parents on the Medicaid side are not as organized. So many of the rules that benefit, so on the DD side, a parent of an adult has always been allowed to be the provider, the representative payee, and the guardian. On the Medicaid side, you can't do all of that.
Really?
No.
No.
The law set, so even on the aging side, senior citizens on the passport, if the wife is on the passport waiver to keep her out of a nursing home, the husband can be the provider now, but he can't be the guardian and he can't be the payee for her benefits. So the part of the confusion is when you look up the laws, they'll say you can't do something unless otherwise
Authorized
Permitted.
by.
otherwise permitted or other.
Yeah.
We're the otherwise authorized. But if you don't know when you're reading the law, almost always, people, parents especially, of children and adults with disabilities have a lot more ability to do things. Because of parents primarily in the 60s that just, damn it, they really filled
Now
the
you have
state
Christmas
house lawn.
popcorn.
Oh, I forgot I'm at a church. I can say that.
The preacher's not here tonight.
Okay.
You're okay.
I won't drop an F-bomb, but we'll see. Okay. I've been accused, people have threatened lightning bolts every once in a while.
Nyoka's watching you though, just
She
like
is, okay,
Nyoka Kradoff is from Columbus.
who has been a tremendous help.
She's fantastic, yeah.
She's fantastic. So all of that, so let's get back to how do I avoid a hearing? It's knowing the rules, knowing as much as your SSA, knowing what your budget is, knowing they can't say you can't afford it, especially if you're $30,000 under budget to begin with. The county board is not obligated to spend all the money. As long as your kid is their health and safety is fine. So I have a $61,000 budget, but they're doing fine on 30. They're doing fine on 30. You don't have an automatic right to the max. But if you prove a need, yeah, okay. And remember, on the Iowa waiver, you can always request a prior authorization. All the waivers say that waivers and Medicaid are payers of last resort. So if there's money available, but it's not your money. Remember when you applied for Medicaid? Medicaid only looks at the child's income and assets. It doesn't matter if you live in $1 million home and have 2 Lexuses in the driveway. It's only about your child. So if the SSA says, well, I think you could afford it, it's not about you. It's about your child and their assets. And remember, they can't have more than $2,000 to their name. And if you have a stable account, that doesn't count. That's separate. So I might have $100,000 in my stable account. That cannot be considered when they're looking for other money. Now, they can suggest, you need a ramp. Have you checked with the Knights of Columbus? Do you think they can build your ramp? People can do that, but they can't look at your assets. They can only, because everyone here has a waiver, they can only look at your child's assets. So if I've got $2,000 in my checking account and I've asked for swimming lessons, they have the right to say, oh, you got some money. Why don't you pay for it? But you can say, but there are other things I want to do, and the swimming lessons are going to help protect my health and safety. So keep health and safety, health and welfare in mind. We've transitioned our waivers from being medically necessary to benefiting my health and safety and my quality of life. So no longer should they be saying it has to be medically necessary. Get a doctor to say it's medically necessary. It's not your Medicaid cards for medically necessary. Your waivers for quality of life. Okay. You would never, if you had a pain in your stomach, you would never go to the doctor and say, I've got a pain in my abdomen, I've got an appendicitis, and this is what you need to do. He would tell you, so don't diagnose yourself or your child and go to the county board and said, this is what's going on and this is what he needs. Let them do their job, but ultimately what they need. But it's a way to talk to people.
I always have them come to the house.
Yeah.
Come on over.
It's a way to talk to people, let them do their job, let them feel good because they got into it to feel good. No one gets into this business to make money.
I always have 2 SSAs, behavior support from Columbus.
Right.
They're at my house.
Right.
Susan Bloom, another behavior support.
Right.
And I'm running into that where I'll ask for things to make Tyler more independent for health and safety because
Right.
I don't want the police involved, and they don't want to do it.
Right.
And then I called the ARC, and Erin, I don't know what her name is, Erin Irwin? Kara. She had gave me lots of suggestions, and she said that the ARC could
Right.
possibly help. It was nothing concrete, but I ended up buying a camera for the outside
Right.
because the waiver just didn't want to help provide. And then I went to the office and debated it with the SSA manager, and she said, well, if you need another one, we could possibly really look into that. And I said, you should have bought the first one.
Right. So Ohio is a technology-first state. So,
Anything to make Tyler more independent,
Right.
and they wanted to put restrictions.
no, yeah, so,
I'm not in for restrictions, but I wanted independence.
so,
and couldn't
yeah,
get
you
that
need to know it
across.
has to benefit Tyler first.
Yeah,
And before they offer staff, they're supposed to consider any kind of technology. We were concerned about it when that originally, the Governor Kasich approached us and said, well, what do you think? And my immediate response, well, that's a privacy thing. And then we went to people with disabilities, and they said, I'd rather have a camera than a teenager sitting on my couch.
yes,
So,
yes.
you know, so they do have to offer technology first.
But that's funny because behavior support was ready to like implant, restrictions, have a one-on-one, and I'm like, what are you guys talking about here?
It's supposed to be the least restrictive.
And that's what I emailed Nicole, what is her name?
Nyoka.
Nyoka. The least restriction, he doesn't need restrictions, we need to do the least restrictive.
And ultimately, that ends up being the
Comments.
least expensive as well.
Absolutely, the least expensive as well. Like in
Right.
Coshocton County, they do some off-the-wall stuff like, and I shouldn't say this, but the SSA recommended a Alexa for Tyler, and for reminders.
Right.
We don't need staff. That's no money. We
Right.
don't need to spend. So they pre-authorized, got it $759 for an Alexa. And the rule is that if it's broke, I have to pay for it. And I said, there's no way I'm gonna
That's
take
for a $50 Alexa?
for a $50 Alexa. I'm like, what do you guys
How
think?
does
So-
that cost that much, like 700? How does
700.
that get to that number?
So there are
You tell me,
different,
how does that happen?
follow the
I'm
rules
just-
again.
I'm totally curious.
The rule for equipment is the usual and
Yes,
customary rate.
yes.
So it's whatever the market will bear. But the SSA should have looked around. That
That's-
system costs $700.
Obviously, never.
That's what I said, $759. We're not taking that, take that back right now. I mean, and they
Comes
were ready
right out
to
of
give it
your
to me.
budget, yeah.
And it come right out of the budget too.
We have free ones at our office.
I think,
You can get them through York for free.
well,
We had
I
a
think,
donation of
I
Alexas.
think there's some,
If you need
when
one,
we
call
talk about
us.
these things, you also gotta remember, sometimes there's options like what we call, remote supports. So sometimes those devices are tied. So are you talking about pure assistive technology, or are you talking about him being able to communicate two ways with audio video with somebody that's
Or is it
supporting
just a
him?
basic Alexa?
It's just a basic Alexa?
Just a basic Alexa
Okay, and
with
then
modern
that's- yeah.
Wi-Fi. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
It was.
That's a waste of money. They waste so much money in Coshocton County. It's unreal.
You have a right to choose the provider, so yeah, you could ask around. So the other thing could be, and we get a lot of questions about this, is transportation. I got it the other day. Well, what's the max on transportation? The number of miles? I was told there's no maximum on transportation. If you want to spend all of your $60,000 to travel, have at it. They're home and community-based waivers. So there is no max on it. The max is on the per mile reimbursement, or sometimes the per trip. There are multiple kinds of transportation. Non-medical transportation is to get me to work, not to public school, but to a vocational school after I
Secondary.
graduate, or to college. Transportation, quote unquote, is to get me out into the community. And it can be used to go to work as well, but it's another thing. And then we've got a new program called self-directed transportation that I can use any one of the waivers to buy a bus pass, to buy Uber. There probably isn't much Uber in Coshocton County, but it's to get me places. And I can take my staff person with me to go to those places. We know, know a young man in this county, in Portage County, that gets at least 1,000 miles a month. He has such significant behaviors that some of his ISP is done in the car. He seems to be calmer in the car. And so the county board understands that, and his independent providers, and he's got multiple, can drive him around. The home care waiver is different, however. The developmental disability waivers are a waiver of a state institution for people with developmental disabilities or what's called an intermediate care facility. The home care waiver is a waiver of a nursing home. So it's assumed that I'm gonna have such intense physical and medical needs. Transportation's included, but it's different. Yes.
A couple things with
Yeah.
transportation. You do not have to own the vehicle.
Mm-mm.
There's no rule that says you have to own the vehicle. You can use the client's vehicle, you can use the parent's vehicle, you can rent a vehicle.
Right,
Okay, and still get paid for transportation. That was a big thing last week.
yeah.
Okay, this person says, does this include non-medical transportation? I was told my son was out of, I don't know what she means out, must be out of miles, and they could only do 10 trips a week, and he works and goes to a day program. You can do 4 non-medical trips a day.
It's based on
Where you're
your
going.
budget, your budget.
Yeah,
I mean, if he's on the level 1 or the self, he's got that budget.
up to
And-
65, right?
Yeah, and probably the SSA has figured out your budget's got to cover your day service,
Mm-hmm.
any staff you've got at home, and it's a hard cap. If it's an IO waiver though, and transportation's really important, there are 2 budgets
Right.
on the IO waiver. There's the budget for what you get at home a budget for what you get at home in the community. That's determined by your developmental disability profile. And then there's a budget for what I get during the day, and that's something called an acuity assessment. We're working to combine those in the next couple of years.
Is that going to make it harder or less
It
money or more money?
We're gonna
And I
fight
don't
that
really
it's
care about
not
the money, I
being
just-
less. We're just gonna fight to make it more flexible.
More flexible?
Yeah, it's that,
Okay. So I thought I got my son for non-medical transportation today.
Yeah.
Because he volunteered in a community play.
Right.
Remember
Yes,
that?
Yes.
And yes, okay, I would have gotten paid more had I billed per mile because it was 30 miles each way
Right.
to play practice. But I would have ran out of HPC miles.
Right.
By transferring, because volunteer is a non-medical transportation service. So, and that community play thing was considered a volunteer act. So I was able to get for his program in the daytime and then to take him to and from his play practice at night. So I was able to, I had to fight it, but I was able to get 4
Right.
a day.
No, a number of you are independent providers, so the other caution to avoid a hearing is it can't be about you.
No.
So it can't be, you're cutting my hours. It has to be, my son needs these hours. Don't talk about yourself. Remember, you don't have any hearing rights as the provider, but you have hearing rights as the mom or dad who's been authorized to represent.
And we had a discussion, because I used my HBC miles to go down to Columbus for a funeral.
Uh-huh.
Remember? And you said to me, but would you have come down to the funeral without your son? I said, well, yeah, I would have, but we would not have gone to the zoo the next day.
Right.
So when I come down to Columbus, I try to make one day for the conference, care less about a conference, and then the next day we do something for him.
Right.
So by doing that, I can claim HBC miles.
Right. Well, we've had transportation. So remember, it can't be used for general utility. The driveway can't be for the whole benefit of the family. What if the whole family wants to go to church on Sunday? Is it a group rate? Or no, your kid would not be going to church unless everyone went. So you're going together as a family and they're being integrated into the community. It's all about your son and the mileage. Now, if there's someone else in the car that's also on a waiver, regardless of the waiver. So I get that. What if grandma's in the car and on the passport waiver and the son's on the level 1 waiver? Regardless of the funding source, it would be a group rate. But
There
if
is
your
no
son is
NFC
in the
group
car
rate.
along with 4 other family members who are typical, it's just about your son.
There's no group rate for non-medical.
No.
I
Only
do
for
have-
HBC.
Yes, please, go.
Like regarding the wheelchair path, like not all of our friends can drive in a straight line. Like I'm not. Here's the thing: is like when he gets it when I used to be an independent provider, I got a 16-year-old on accident stuck sideways
Right. Oh,
in
I've
the
done that.
sidewalk. And it to lift a
That would be
power
Eric.
chair, I'm like, oh, you know,
Right.
so like her son could get stuck driving down to the bus. You know, like it's not that simple.
It's all negotiable.
Okay.
If it's for
Talk
one
to us
person,
about
how
that.
wide should it be?
Yeah, no, can you
Yes,
talk to
and
us
does
about
it need to
that?
have rails on it, or, yeah.
Yeah, like the bus lift is in the back,
It's
but they're gonna
all
put it, no, can you,
negotiable, yeah.
what do you, should we just talk to you privately and like to
No, I
ask
think
more?
it's,
Or,
ask for what you think you need.
well,
Yeah,
what if, and they were like, this is what we can give you, but it's not quite enough. Then-
that's when you get to the hearing,
Okay.
yeah. So you've done all this stuff, I know parents and people with disabilities don't have to be professional. You have to be your child's advocate. Try to use lemonade and cookies. I mean, dropping an F-bomb in an ISP meeting is not gonna get you anywhere. It's, my daughter and my grandson both had challenges in school. I was the dad that you never wanted to have come to a meeting. And I'll tell you a story. My daughter had challenges reading. And I read every assignment until the 12th grade. But I was the local executive director for the ARC, and I'm not gonna cry, but I was the local executive director for the ARC. My wife is the special ed teacher in the district. And the psychologist called me and said, we're gonna test her. We're gonna test her. He called me after the test and said, your daughter's got 100 IQ. I really thought it would be higher because of who you and your wife were. I almost killed the man. Said there's absolutely nothing wrong with 100 IQ. My daughter is a college graduate at this point, you know, but I was the dad that would freak out, scream, and I still do that as the ARC executive. But, you know, you're allowed to do that. So when they say, well, you act professional, that's not your job.
So you can cry.
Your job is to be who you are. You're your child's strongest advocate. You're gonna be there. I had a parent tell me once, you get to go home at night. I never get to go home. You know, even if he's on the other side of the town, I never get to go home. So don't give me the crap that, you know, I have to be professional. It's one of those lessons that you never forget. So you don't have to be the professional, but try to use lemonade and cookies. You know, it really does go farther. So you reach the point where they just said absolutely no. You can appeal if there's a delay. So those of you who have tried to get what's called participant-directed goods and services, that's available on the self and the level 1. And you've been waiting for 3 months, don't wait for 3 months. It doesn't take that long. You have a right to appeal. If there's a denial, you really believe you need something, your child needs something, appeal. You don't wait
Get it in
around.
writing, because without it in writing, you cannot appeal.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Oh, we've been told no, we
No,
haven't
you
had a
can
denial
appeal.
of writing.
It does not, it doesn't have to be in writing. It should be, but if they're waiting for a month to put it in writing, appeal. But it's not a threat of a denial. It's, we're in the ISP meeting and we're cutting you. So why I say you don't have to wait for it in writing, because when you get to the hearing, everyone has to tell the truth. I swear to God, I'm telling the truth. And you have a right to cross-examine. Did you tell me this? Yes or no, you know? So when you say in the ISP meeting, I'm going to appeal this, federal law requires a stay put provision. So if I'm saying, that's why you don't have to wait for it in writing. If they say, we're cutting your hours, not your work hours, we're cutting your son's services, I'm appealing this.
And that
The
can be
clock
for
stops.
transportation,
Yeah, it applies for any service covered by Medicaid or the waiver. Services cannot be cut until a hearing officer rules.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a federal law.
So
Stay
the school
put.
age
Pardon me?
Is it just like a school age IEP? Is it the same type of state?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah, this one particularly is Medicaid and waivers, that you cannot be cut if, it's like, I'm pleading sanctuary, you know? They can't harm, it cannot be harmed until the hearing officer rules. So the first thing you do is, you leave, even on the way home, you call this number. You don't have to, you can email if you want. The fastest way is to call this number, rings into a generalist whose hearing appeals is to schedule a hearing. You need to know your child's name, their social security number, and you have to be specific because they're getting calls about the home care waiver, they're getting calls about the Medicaid card, that it's a developmental disabilities level 1 waiver, and I live at X, you know, they're gonna assign a county. The lady on the phone, and it's almost always a lady, isn't gonna know other than to fill out the form. This is when they may say, what authority do you have? I've been designated as the authorized representative, and if you need a copy, I can send it to you. That begins the ball rolling. They will schedule a hearing. Since the pandemic, it's always been on the phone or through Zoom. It used to be, and it could go back to, the hearing would be held at the local Job and Family Services
You
office.
should keep a master copy and
He,
then take one out and make.
does anyone know who Perry Mason is?
Yeah.
Okay, I used to describe it as, it's not, you don't need an attorney, attorneys muck it up. It's not that formal. It really is not. It'll be probably a Zoom meeting. The hearing, they will call, they will email you or send you a note when the hearing is gonna be. It's sometimes a formal letter that says the hearing is on this day, here's the Zoom link. If you can't make it, let them know. If you don't show, you lose.
My hearing's always been on the phone.
Yeah, it's that informal. The only formal part of it, and these are nice people, men and women. They will swear you in. Everyone introduces you. Can, like an IEP meeting, you have the right to bring anyone you want with you. There's no precedent setting, which means you can't say, "Well, my girlfriend's kid got this." I don't care. You know, that's, every case is different. Okay? Just because your girlfriend got something for their kid doesn't mean you're going to get it. Every case is different. They're all based on the same rules, but unlike in a court of law, there's no precedent setting. You know, there's no Supreme Court per se. So, yeah, go ahead.
Could you have to pay something back in the event that
No.
they find you know and you already got something
No,
or bought
no.
something? You don't have to pay
No,
anything
it's
back.
stay
So
put.
there's
They
nothing to
can't-
lose doing this.
No.
But sometimes.
No. The only thing to lose, and Becky put it in the announcement, is you might piss someone off.
And some time.
But no, unless they determine there's Medicaid fraud, which is a different thing. You're just saying either there was a delay in service, or there was a cut of reduction, or you got a notice saying your child no longer qualifies for the waiver, and we're kicking them off the waiver. That rarely, if ever, happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Janet, you know Janet.
Right.
Can an SSA add an hour to an on-site on-call without an assessment and request that the client be put in diapers?
No.
And request what?
That the client be put in diapers?
So if I say I need a staff person in the middle of the night because my son wets himself, and I've got to get up to change the bed, no, that's inappropriate to say, let's put him in diapers. No, especially if it's an adult. All of this stuff.
There is an OSOC assessment tool,
Yes.
and in order for it to be authorized, you have to get at least 5 continuous hours of sleep, but
Right.
I'm not sure where.
I
they're going
don't
with
know,
that.
it just was a strange.
If it sounds odd, it's probably not right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
You have to-
Well, I'm
yeah,
assuming
go
that.
ahead. Right.
Somebody gets
The
fired.
situation we've got is services that previously have always been approved. Now they're saying that
Oh, hey,
they can't do it anymore. because of some new
All of your
rules.
time should be.
Or that they perhaps were in violation of the rule.
We're finding that out, that sometimes the county didn't know what they should have been doing, and then, oh, I guess there is a rule.
You can come in.
Do get any specifics, like of
Or
where it was?
take a card and email the specifics or something to him.
Yeah,
Very low.
yeah.
We're finding
Like it on
that, yeah,
computer.
we're finding that a lot, that,
Glass of water to TV.
we were talking about transportation. We have counties that sometimes have said, okay, your child's 16 and they're going to high school, we'll use the waiver to transport them back and forth to high school. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Waivers can't pay for anything dealing with education of children. The schools are responsible for that. And we found that some county boards have just figured that out. Or they've been allowing the waiver homemaker personal care provider to be the aide in the classroom. Well, no, you can't do that, you know, or my child's on an autism scholarship and here's an extra staff person to help. You're not, so sometimes there are some new rules, but nothing changing a lot of major stuff. It's just,
They're stating that the, transportation is specialized for DD when they do actually transport other individuals that are not DD related, so that's why they're trying to deny the service.
is it through participant directed goods and services?
Well, mine currently is SD, has the SD transportation, but previously, yes.
So participant directed goods and services, and they're often trying to figure it out,
Yep.
cannot be used for segregated services. Participant directed goods and services is to get you into the community with typical people. So it might have just been they've been using the wrong billing codes. Because if it's a mixed group, you could just charge regular transport. Okay, you can call me.
But if they're bringing them to work, isn't that into the community?
Yeah, but it's sometimes if they build the wrong billing code, that's why the rules are real important.
Unless they don't want to be an NMT, they want to use.
Your provider doesn't.
Correct.
Okay, that's a provider problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other example is, I want my kid to go to camp, and I want them. The big one here is the Rotary Camp. It's got an excellent reputation, but it's a camp specifically for people with disabilities. Well, I don't want to be certified as a disability camp, so I can't use my waiver to go there. Because if it's the rule with in Waiverland is if I'm a business like a camp or a transportation provider and most of my customers have a disability, I've got to be certified by the Department of Developmental Disabilities and follow all the rules. If most of my customers are not people with disabilities, I don't have to be certified, and I can charge whatever I charge anyone else, but I can't bill, you know, they're
Is
just.
there a percentage on that, or?
No.
I mean,
If they're recognized, so this is a mixed population,
yes,
I think you'd have an argument.
I do too.
I think you'd have an argument. That,
Because they've been funding
right,
my son for 2 years.
yeah.
Now they're changing it.
Who, is it a disability company that does it?
I
Okay,
mean, they have a mix, so.
I think I would,
I will, but he's doing a lot of this, and I'm afraid at some point he's gonna hit me, so I kind of, I was
Somehow
like,
or other, you moved out.
I'll move back in, but he's gotta control his right arm there, so it doesn't.
my granddaughter is a dancer and she claims I do jazz hands too.
And it's funny because we were doing stuff yesterday and the same thing was happening. And I was like, I keep seeing the hand getting closer and closer to my face. So I'm like,
It's bad when they take pictures because I end up.
It's in terms of endearment.
I just don't want to get.
No, I love this guy.
I don't want to get the accidental. You know.
Yes. So, yeah.
So anyway, yes.
Call, because I think you do have an
I
argument.
do too, yeah.
Have
Okay.
you talked to Amber, the,
I talked
the
to
super- Amy? Sometimes a well-placed phone call, yeah, take our cards and call, we
Okay.
do, but
Okay.
call. Because it's, yeah, if it's mixed.
Are you guys together?
No, we're not.
No.
We just
Okay,
have
then,
to-
I didn't
we
think
have
you
to
were,
sit-
but then you guys started like bonding, and I was like,
There-
Oh, we have the
there-
same
there are
transportation
13
company.
same?
This is
Oh,
a-
okay.
I
That was
know
like-
it's
There are
around
13
table.
families that are gonna be affected by this.
Okay, perfect. I was just trying to
Is the
figure out.
company certified as a provider of DD services? No, they're not, are they?
They are not, and they do not wanna be an NMT. They do offer, it's,
They charge less than non-medical transportation.
So they're not certified in the DD system as a
No.
provider of any transportation?
correct.
Okay,
So do you have a level one or a self?
So,
Okay,
Self.
yeah.
okay, both self.
Okay.
And we
right.
have,
If he
we,
wants this person, his
Can-
anxiety level is much better.
Can,
Okay.
Same driver.
Nay, okay, if you're on the call, I'm gonna be calling you.
I have her number. Do you
I've
want?
got it. Yeah, I've got her cell. Yeah, sometimes counties
She dropped
overinterpret
offline.
the
She's like,
rule
I'm
because they want to do the right thing. And the reason they overinterpret sometimes, if they're audited by the state and the state determines they should not have authorized it, the county has to pay 100% of the cost versus
I think
40%.
actually Medicaid wrote the company a letter saying that they were not gonna authorize funds anymore.
Okay. Let me know more details
Yes,
of the
yep.
company and I'll
Yeah,
go
I'm
with the
curious
state.
about this one myself.
Okay.
Like, how was that?
Yeah. Because that's half the people on my van are typical and half have a disability.
It's civil rights, it's not a van.
It's like
Oh.
Uber, if
The new
you
one?
will.
Okay, well then that should be all right.
Like it's one-on-one in our case.
Yeah.
you know, but we're-
Yeah. Us too, yeah.
So they're there to
If they'll
serve the
authorize
general
Uber,
community.
but they won't authorize this. It just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
Okay,
We get the
Yeah.
same driver every day for 2 years,
okay.
and now they're cutting them out? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But they'll pay for a stranger to come, or an Uber guy.
Right. Or you can just, self-directed transportation allows you to have an agreement with your neighbor even to do it. But, you know.
That's, a
Yeah.
little less. I mean, it's this company charges $18 for a ride
Okay.
versus.
We're
Uber
further
12.
away, so we're being
Yes.
charged more, but.
Okay. Yeah,
But it's still less than the
email me.
medical.
Okay, I need some more details, like,
Yeah, well,
yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
happy.
email me.
Yeah.
We'll
And then-
get the answers.
And in a like-minded thing, here's something I feel more in general. Solon Blue Ribbon Activities, which is special needs program designed for the special needs kids in mind.
Uh-huh.
They used to always pay for that. Now they won't.
Because it's
It gets them
visible,
into the community.
Yeah,
They
but-
have volunteers there.
Yeah.
It's in the community center.
but it's their major customer is a person with a disability, so they have
Yes.
to be certified. And they have to accept the state rate. So if the customer, if I got a 16-year-old, they can go to a Boy Scout camp and pay the rate the Boy Scouts.
Sure.
If they go to the Rotary camp and the Rotary camp doesn't want to get certified, they can't go to the Rotary and have the waiver pay because it's disability specific.
Well, I
It's
can
just-
take your hands coming.
I'm sorry. You said good peripheral vision too.
Okay.
No, I
Yeah,
gotta scroll.
but I think if it's,
I think some of that stuff comes back to too, and this is why I want more details about how they were paying for it before in the funding. So was the waiver paying for it
Yes.
through this?
Yes.
And now they're saying,
Specifically.
we don't, are they saying as a provider, we don't wanna do it, or we can't do it?
My first cycle or two was through participant goods and services.
Okay.
yeah.
Then, most recently was the SD.
SD, okay, okay.
Can you
And they're
talk?
saying
And you're
either of
both in
those. They're saying they won't authorize either of
Your
those.
summit, okay.
And I'm Cuyahoga.
We'll figure
Cuyahoga
it out.
Summit, both self-waivers are,
But it's the same company.
same company, okay.
Yeah, I bet the state audited it, but we'll find out. We'll find out.
Okay.
So you get into the hearing, they swear you in, and they do an introduction. It's that informal. They swear you in. Really, either one could go first, but the burden of proof is on the county as to why they delayed or why they denied a service. It can even be, you've gone, for those people that aren't in the system yet, the needs assessment determined that I don't have a need in the next 12 months. You can't technically appeal the needs assessment unless the answers are wrong. And I've gone through hearing with people, and what the hearing officer says is do it over. The same with the developmental disability profile. It's not necessarily appealable, but if the questions are wrong, and you can prove the questions are wrong, the hearing officer will usually order the county to do it again.
Oh, you mean the questions, the
The answers to the questions, yes. Or, but a lot of those things that aren't appealable technically, if it's just blatantly wrong,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, he's never been able to go to the bathroom by himself.
But how do you prove that if they're like, well, he did do it?
That way, it's you have to provide evidence. So it can be,
Like a video of this person unable to talk would be evidence that they didn't say hello.
Perhaps family members or friends.
well, if
that
you
could
bring them,
say that.
so if you bring them and they're under oath, but oftentimes it's bringing those rules that explain. So one of the things is, I'm saying my son has a complex care need and he can't roll over. So he qualifies for that extra 3 something an hour, and the SSA says, well, he can roll over. So no, we can't. I mean, you can have the therapist, it's best if you have the person on the Zoom call because they've sworn to tell the truth. I, as a physical therapist, can tell you he can't roll over. You know, those kind of things happen. You can call us for help. Sometimes it's submitting the actual rule, and sometimes it's, I've been in Zoom when they used to be in person. Sometimes it's the county doesn't want Medicaid to tell them what to do. And
Not being able to roll over though, is that enough to get a medical add-on or?
yes,
Because Eric can't roll over.
but he can walk.
He can walk.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
so I think.
So it's a
But if he
combination of
falls,
things.
okay, because if he falls on the floor, he can't roll over to get himself up off the floor.
So when you look at we go back to the rules and you look in the rule and it lists out the things to get the complex care add-on, it'll say
I have to look at that
1,
again.
2,
But it doesn't
3.
apply to shared living anyway.
Oh, well,
That's
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 true.
another
that's another story, yeah.
Oh,
So, but it does
true.
to anyone
Yeah.
on the level 1 or the self, that your budget doesn't increase, but the amount of money that your provider gets goes up. And so we were the ones that were able to get the complex care need add-on with 3 moms going with us to meet with the director who had a son with cerebral palsy, and we were able to get him, he understood that before the complex care need add-on, a provider got paid the same to take someone to the movies as they did lifting someone to get a bath, and or someone that had a behavior. So he understood. There were 3 add-ons. There are 4 actually with longevity.
Yeah.
But you can get all of them at the same time. So you theoretically could get an extra $6 or $7 an hour if you had a complex care need, a behavior need, you had a longevity add-on, you were distributing medication. So the hearing officer will swear you in. You bring evidence, which is often those rules that you've gone through. See, the rule says this, that I can use transportation wherever I want, or wherever I need. Again, you're supposed to remind me that it's not a want, it's a
not
need.
a want. It's not
It's
a
a
want.
need.
We all want lots of things.
But I need to get out in the community. So the burden of proof is on the county board as to why they did what they did. You present all of this evidence. It's not my girlfriend got it, and it's not about my hours being cut. It's about the service that's been cut or denied. if there are questions like was it really allowed to begin with, call us. We'll try to help. The hearing officer won't tell you what they are deciding during the hearing. You'll get, it depends. Some will send it in the next couple of days. Some will in the next couple of weeks.
So I got denied on it. I didn't go ahead. I didn't fight it. After my first hearing, it's like, screw it. I'm going to do it myself. I wanted to get a chairlift to get Eric down in the basement. My house has been hit by a tornado. I got new siding, new roof, and everything.
Right.
And I wanted to be able, if we got another one, which we've had them, and they said, well, that's a what if. We can't guarantee you'll get hit again. So no, you can't have a chairlift to take them down the basement because there are many people that don't have basements. So that was their denial. So I paid the $3,000. I got my own chairlift.
Right. Okay.
So I didn't go and I didn't fight anymore. I was tired.
So he's also got a trust.
Huh?
So he's got, I don't want to talk private stuff.
I'm sorry, yes,
but
he does have a
he's got
trust.
a trust that pays for those kind of
It's
things.
a Medicaid payback trust.
Yeah.
And we did end up using that.
So we're a stable account that can't question. I'm sorry. If there are funds specifically set up, then sometimes.
So they didn't even ask me about his trust.
No.
So they didn't even ask me about that.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
so
but I think if people are in the system as we're, they're gonna know things. I mean,
Okay.
obviously everyone's
Right.
social, all this stuff is in these
So
systems.
you get the decision, and the decision says, county, you've got to do this. They have no appeal rights. If the hearing officer tells the county, often the hearing officer will just say, go back to the table and renegotiate. But if the hearing officer says, county, you've got to do this, they've got to do it.
Do they have a time frame they have to do it in?
It's up to the hearing officer. If you believe it's a delay, you go back to the hearing officer. And we've had that happen. When we first started hearings, or doing these for waivers, some counties just said, we're not doing that. We're not doing these waivers. And hearing officers ordered the county to begin giving out waivers. If you lose, you have the right to something called an administrative review. It just goes higher up in the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they check to make sure all the rules were followed. They're not necessarily going to overrule the hearing officer unless the hearing officer just totally messed up and didn't follow the rules. People ask me, well, then when can you appeal it again? Get a no, the second, start all over again. The process can start. If it's the same thing, I don't know that I would, but you can appeal. Was there a question?
Do you know Jenny O'Brien?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So she says my son is a I can't say it.
Quadriplegic.
Thank you. I can't say it. And we just got the complex care add-on this month. It took them a whole year and a speech therapist saying he needed full assistance eating. Don't give up when you know an individual needs it.
Right. And she and I have talked.
She's the
like-
one with the mileage problem.
I wouldn't wait more than a month. It doesn't take that long. Even the process of your ISP, the team agreed on something, and the county says, well, we got to wait for another month for the Medicaid person to approve it on local level. Well, I don't think.
Cindy says to move, he doesn't swing as much that way.
Yeah. You know why? This is the arm I broke a while ago, and I've
Are you
arthritis
telling
in
me
my
I sat on
left
the wrong
arm.
side the whole time?
Mary Ann just left and she's watching.
Yes, on her way back there.
On her way back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
That's scary.
On the way back. Stay off at 77 for a while.
Oh, Cindy's laughing. Cindy is laughing at you guys.
Is this Cindy Milano?
Yes.
Yeah, Cindy Milano.
Now, I broke my arm on the way to a speaking engagement about 15 years ago. I was speaking to a parent group in Cincinnati in a blizzard, and I was on I-75, and there was a rest stop right before my exit, and I don't wear dress shoes anymore. I had dress shoes with leather soles, and coming out, I came down the ramp, and all 250 pounds of me at the time slammed on my arm and I busted my shoulder, my upper arm, and oh, it's terrible. And then the rest of the story, I shouldn't say this one. The rest of the story was they put me on a lot of pain medication. A lot. I was taking Vicodin 4 times a day, lots of stuff from January until October. And I never stopped working and I never stopped traveling. And my doctor was like, I thought you would have understood you're not supposed to drive. I stopped immediately because I was in a meeting with executives from Nationwide Insurance at a fancy restaurant in downtown Columbus. I came out of the restaurant and someone told me they had locked their keys in their car and they needed a ride to the bus station. I said, I'm parked out. Come on, I'll take you. I'm high as a kite on prescription drugs. And the man got in my car and we started driving to the east side of Columbus where there is no bus station. And he had a backpack and I was like, I don't think there's a bus station over here. And he reached into his backpack and said, I'm not going to hurt you. And I said, you need to leave. And thank God I didn't get killed, but you didn't need to know that story, but it was like
That was on Facebook Live.
that went on Facebook Live because
We're so happy you're here today.
I've never used drugs and stuff, so I didn't know. And my doctor yelled at me because he thought I understood what Vicodin does to you. I had no idea.
Just made the pain go away.
Cindy Milano, for those that don't know, she is my nurse trainer on my Facebook page. And if you have a medical question, she's the one I send you to for a medical question. She is one of the smartest people I know. So, and Gary knows her.
Tell Cindy that the other day she was texting Gary and I was the one actually responding on his phone.
Oh, she's right here. I'm sure she heard you. She says that the appeal process is very daunting.
Yes.
The county makes a person feel helpless, and they do, even for experienced people. But do not be intimidated. Appeal again, and the next administrator may not be as tough.
I always tell parents, put blinders
Document
And
everything.
Cindy's laughing at you again.
Keep tracking
Put
everything.
blinders on.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do for your child. School districts,
Document,
everything.
document.
There's always going to be someone saying, if we do this for your kid, we won't be able to do it. Put blinders on. It's all about your child. And again, here I am doing it again.
There's a wall here. And
Right.
Remember WKRP in Cincinnati?
Right.
The guy had the tape and it was the wall.
You get workman's comp too. You work for the ARC. So if he hits you, it hurts you, right?
I'm the guy that has to administer all of that. So
It can be daunting, but don't give up.
don't give up. Document,
Okay.
document.
Got one question I don't
Okay, there'll
understand.
be a couple here in the room too.
What is dual equipment? And can you talk about dual equipment?
Dual what?
Equipment.
There's dual
Durable
life.
medical equipment.
Oh, DME.
So
okay.
a waiver will pay for some equipment, but every waiver person has a Medicaid card. Medicaid pays for something called durable medical equipment.
Okay, so you talk about hospital bed.
Right, hospital beds, and there's a rule in waiver land that if your Medicaid card will pay for it, your waiver card won't.
A waiver's a payer of last resort.
So what, your Medicaid card will pay for the wheelchair, but the waiver might pay for the bells and whistles you need on the wheelchair. So durable medical equipment won't pay for the thing you need to hold your iPad so you can communicate, but your waiver will. And it's just
Actually, Medicaid will, I'm speaking.
They will now.
They will pay for
They
the
will
bouncing
do that
step
too,
one.
okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
they won't pay for a battery extender. So that's
Okay.
something you could, interesting.
Yes,
to know, yeah.
That's right, we were able to get one for Ryan.
No, something different. His
No,
was-
I
yeah.
think we were doing.
Oh,
replace-
that's
yeah,
right.
There's.
But I just know that from my.
Okay, thank you.
But not family professionals. They will-
Well, and that's the other challenge, is that Medicaid's not good at listing all the stuff that they'll pay for.
Yeah, I just
It's
submit
kind
a
of-
lot and see what gets.
Yeah,
rejected.
just-
Well, I think that's the process that's challenging for people is, again, they're supposed to go through these steps of, okay, will the Medicaid card pay for, or first private insurance and Medicaid card? And then It's a little challenging on the Medicaid side because you might get a denial, but you're trying to always figure out, well, is it a true denial or is
What
it,
parts and pieces.
did I not list this under the correct code or something like that? So
Right.
that's the challenge.
So what else can
So
we?
we have to
yes.
leave soon, but
Okay, you
Yeah.
guys give your
I want to
question.
thank you guys for having me. How did you hear about the meeting?
The Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, and then my speech therapist, my brother is on a waiver and.
My son's on the
And what county are you guys from?
summit.
In
Summit?
Cuyahoga.
Okay.
We're also friends. And
Yeah.
So here we are. Yeah. Okay, so I have two quick questions. So this is not related to my family, but I have an individual who's going to be transitioning out of into adult services, and the county has already said we know this person needs 2-to-1 supports, but our county doesn't support that idea, so we're not going to offer it. But it's a threat still. Like they haven't. I was on a meeting with an SSA, and we were like, you know, Joe Schmo needs 2-to-1 to be in the community, and they were like, we see that based on this and that, but this, I talked to my supervisor, and the statement of XYZ County is that we don't support 2-to-1.
So does the person not have a waiver? So if
no, I
they
think
don't,
they do have a waiver.
if they have a waiver, they can't say that.
Right.
If they don't have a waiver, they can.
Okay.
So if
I'm
they're
not sure
using
about that, so I'll
local
check.
dollars,
Yeah.
the county gets to make the rules of how to spend those dollars.
Hold on. If using local dollars.
They get to decide. And they can, so free choice of provider doesn't exist with local dollars either.
Okay.
It's like, we've got this nice workshop over here. Take it or leave it. If they're using a waiver, you have free choice. And if your child needs 2-to-1, they need 2-to-1. The county can't just be
Right.
what's called arbitrary and just say,
Okay.
not our
And
county.
similar question too, if they are at like a DD certified like day program, and they say this person still needs 2 sports, does it not count there because it's a if they're
Day services
I know
do
that's
not
kinda weird.
provide for 2-to-1 staff.
Okay, so that's different. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't even provide 1-to-1 staff.
Right,
Okay.
there's a
Oh, that's
assessment.
what I meant 1-to-1 type, but either way,
Yeah,
yes.
it
I
does.
think the lowest you could get to in a day service would be like 1 to
6
4,
or something. Okay.
1 to 4,
Yeah.
Right, but
1 to
the
8.
last one.
But I want to say on the level one in the South, what families are doing who need 1-to-1,
Yeah.
the level one in the South is one budget. And most of those families just use their homemaker personal care provider to
Yeah.
do those things. And that can be 1-to-1. And there
But if
can
you
be,
needed 2-to-1.
you can have 2 homemaker
Oh, you
personal
can,
care.
you have to
to
appeal
one.
that.
No. Well, if they say no, you can't appeal it.
Okay.
But if,
So I think the biggest first thing would be to find out if they have a waiver or not.
Yeah.
Start with that, that would be the big
Yeah.
key.
And then the last question, is there ever a time it would make sense, like, if he's on the homemaker, I'm sorry, the home care.
Home care.
Is there ever a time it would make sense to see about transitioning to a DD waiver?
Okay.
What is that,
because the qualifications for waivers are, number one, you're Medicaid eligible, which means you're poor as a person with a
The child
disability,
would be
the child, and you meet a certain level of care.
yeah,
Nursing level of care and developmental disability level of care are not interchangeable. You know, you have one or the other. There are some people that could go either way, but if you've got a nursing level of care already, chances are that it's not. So
like,
that
what if you
needs.
kind of meet both,
gonna be involved for a long time.
Well, the challenge becomes to access a DD waiver, you have to go through the needs assessment. And you would have to prove that the home care waiver is not meeting his needs. And if you're not using your entire budget, that's,
An issue.
yeah, that becomes an issue. It's just like if I've got a self waiver, but I really want the IO waiver, if I've only used half of my self waiver, I'm not getting an IO. Even if I'm not using it because I can't find a provider. The system would say, and your kid's health and safety is okay, because you did it for free. You know, that becomes the problem and the challenge is if you survive through the year on half your budget, you survive for the year on half your budget. It's a
That's the difficult
But
thing in
even
our
if your
system
quality
too.
of life is impacted, you know, or
Yeah,
is that
I mean,
not
even
part
if you
of
can't
the-
find a provider, like I can't find
Yeah, I
providers,
know.
then
You're not gonna find
I'm
them on
not
the
gonna use my
IO
budget,
either.
so then.
But you can use the budget though for transportation just to make sure
Oh,
that
yeah,
you're
I'm
using
just
it.
saying, that's the reality of it.
Right,
Like,
and so you
people
start
think,
using it
"Oh,
for
I got a
this."
waiver and everything in my life now is so much better. Well, I still gotta find staff, I still gotta do all these things for my loved ones, so.
So is your child under 18?
Yeah.
Okay.
How,
So-
yeah, how old do you think we are?
No. But understand that since January, parents on the home care waiver, if their child meets what's called extraordinary care, and you can't find another provider,
Well, he needs a nurse.
okay,
Okay.
that becomes,
And I would say the home care waiver is the right,
right.
Yeah.
And also, I talked about the differences on the DD waiver, a parent can give medication and be paid. On the home care waiver, a parent cannot give medication and be paid. Unless they happen to be a nurse. You know? It's like, we have delegated nursing and family delegation on our side. That doesn't exist on the home care waiver side. It doesn't even exist on the passport waiver. I almost hit him again. You need to sit on my left.
I'll remember that.
But my therapist always wants me to do this, so you can help me.
So what you're saying is essentially, even if I sit on the left, there's a chance that your hand's gonna be.
Right.
Okay.
I got it.
You
Tell
can sit
another
behind
story.
him.
I met Dave
Don't tell me
right
no stories.
after I hurt I was hurt.
I'm out
And
the
I've
picture
been,
on this.
I had gone through all of that physical therapy, medication, and they said, we've done as much for you, Derek, as we think we can do. The doctor recommended getting a trainer at a gym. So we had just met.
I had him at the gym, and he quit on me.
We
When
shared
we
it.
had to flip tires in the parking lot.
I made it until they made me flip.
It was over.
Almost.
The dream was over.
I was never athletic to begin with, but they had those huge tires.
Before you guys leave,
No, I'm not doing this.
next month, my meeting is, I have Chris Boring, he's been here before, he's great. He talks about Medicare, so you know what Medicare, and probably doesn't apply to you guys yet.
Okay.
Well, no, not necessarily.
No, I don't know, yeah.
Oh, does your child ever end up on SSDI?
Right?
SSDI?
Yeah.
2 years after they get SSDI, they get a Medicare.
We have Medicare.
Okay, do you know whether you get the best plan or not?
Do you what?
Do you know whether you get the best plan or not?
We're trying to
He-
get
Based on our
someone
dentist
for
that we
Medicaid to
need
talk
and
about
different.
Well, he'll go through, he'll say, yes,
Ohio.
this says, however, this is, and he'll look up your meds
They're in
too. I
transition.
mean, we have
I
United,
can't talk
so,
about
so that's that.
until they're figuring it all out.
I have your emails on this list?
Yeah,
Okay.
my situation's a little unique where
We're trying to get-
my brother
We
is
have
the one
a
with
couple
the
woods and
disability,
feet
but
taken out, trying to change,
Oh, yeah,
somebody to do it.
for one of my parents.
Can't- We're gonna,
yeah.
So, who is Terry
Rates are so
Hummel?
low.
I'm old.
I know Gary.
Terry Hummel?
Gary
That's
Humble.
you, okay.
Oh,
doing 25.
Hummel, is that
Thank you.
plus
Thank
one?
you. Oh, wait. Yeah.
PL, okay, DL, that's why I wrote it out.
I just see two separate
He is a
ones.
Tom, yeah.
Yeah, they copied it.
Terry, okay. Just wanna make sure I can read them.
So
You'll be here next month for the meeting? I'm sure it was on the cruise.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not leaving on another
There
cruise
are people
until
that,
August.
Department of Medicaid
Oh,
has
yeah, I'm going to Kentucky.
contracted with.
And-
You never know who you're gonna get. They just appoint
First of May.
But if you don't make a decision,
Are you off now?
administrative review goes up to the director of the department of
Because I've
DD
been here before.
and her staff.
Gary was here the last
You know, we have great,
I was in the
have a great relationship, we always have.
Don't
with the
forget
SLA
to
and
fill out
everything.
your forms for continuing ed for tonight.
It up and work with
Continuing education.
It was 30 days with this
I-
presentation day.
Oh, we get that.
You guys get continuing education for coming tonight, by the way.
I think a lot of the schools, they go, oh, no, it's gonna be
There's a
30 days.
form on the DOD website.
That's me, I'll send you the form. It's online, it's also in the
So
files.
I'll
Because
talk
I'm
to the people
going
at the department,
next week,
email
are
me
you
more
going to the
specifics.
crisis?
I'll talk to
Yeah,
people at the
yeah, you're
department
coming
that was
back. Cool.
really going
And
on.
Okay, yeah.
I'll be there too. And then I said,
Yeah.
I said instead of my
Okay.
doing that.
Gary, well, you're still
Yeah, they won't
live,
re-
Oh, I'm
question.
still alive.
Yeah, you're still live. question is, if somebody rarely gets kicked off the waiver, how do other people get a waiver?
One getting kicked off doesn't get someone, there's no finite number of people on waivers.
Okay,
There are as many waivers as Ohio wants. So it's not like if Dave gets kicked off, that leaves a space for me. There are lots of empty waiver slots.
okay.
So one doesn't have anything to do with another. What it has to do with is whether your county has, whether I qualify, that I need something in the next 30 days or 12 months, and whether my county has the 40% match to draw down the waiver dollars. So, and you need to get to know your county board. There's a county board meeting every month. Attend those meetings, sit in the front row, and every county has to have an annual plan of how many waivers they're gonna ask for. It has to be made public, and no one shows up and comments on the plan. Every year, the county board has to have a public meeting. They post it on their website, and they have to approve. The superintendent says, hey, I think we can afford 10 waivers. I move the 10 waivers be funded. And the federal CMS, which is the federal agency, Ohio has to assure to CMS that our waivers are evenly distributed.
Among all 88 counties?
So even though Cuyahoga and Franklin want to put more people on waivers, they can't if Tuscarawas and Lorraine don't. It has to statistically be spread out.
Even if there's people that need them?
That's why sometimes you'll see the state offer to pay the 40%.
So every couple years, the state puts out some state-funded waivers to balance it out. I don't want to blame Lorraine or Tuscarawas. It's usually the counties that just are poorer, and they don't have the 40% match. But on a federal level, our agreement for waivers is the state of Ohio, not our county. In Pennsylvania and Indiana, you pay your state taxes and the money's evenly distributed. No one else has levies like we do. And it's just, we've got more money than anyone else, especially in the two counties. There's not a lot of money.
I'm coming next week.
Okay. Okay, I'll probably
Maybe
move over there
more
because I
than
was
any other
expecting
counties, a
people
lot
to
of
show
local
up.
dollars, as well as the way.
Okay.
So if someone
Great.
can't get diapers through the Medicaid card,
Very, very, very.
they pay for them.
Yeah.
Locally.
So, yeah.
Have you ever seen a gymnasium filled with equipment?
You okay, Gizmo?
They have a gym, they have an
Yeah, I'll
office
see
like
you later.
community college
I'll probably come back
downtown,
tomorrow and clean up.
and they have a gymnasium filled with used wheelchairs,
So this
walkers,
is what my,
standing
so you a
devices.
provider?
They'll just
Okay,
let
perfect,
people
okay.
use. Yeah, so if you ever need a piece of equipment, just even try it out. We do that with technology.
Gary,
as
one more
well.
question
Yeah.
online while you're still alive. Is there a definition between an IO waiver and what qualifies for an IO waiver versus a level 1 versus?
Yeah, it's about, they're different services, but essentially it's a different budget.
So how do you go from being an IO waiver to level 1?
You
Is
never
there-
go backwards, you never want to go backwards.
Okay, the determination, is there a specific
Based
determination?
on need.
Based on need.
Yeah, so it's usually you start out with a lower funded waiver, but it's based on need. You can't live in a group home with a level 1 or a self waiver.
Okay, now if you go into a group home and you come out, there's things called emergency waivers, correct?
Out of an intermediate care facility.
And ICF.
Yes, if I'm in an ICF and I want to leave,
No, she wants to.
the team agrees that I probably could do well outside the ICF. There are what are called exit waivers that the state would fund to leave the ICF. Or if I'm in a hospital for a long time, many children get on the home care waiver because they've been in the hospital for a long time and so medical needs, they can get a home care waiver to leave.
So when Eric came home from the nursing home, he had a waiver immediately, a
Right.
Medicaid, and I had no idea that's how I ended up with one. I
Right.
had no clue. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, because it costs less to live with you than it does to live in the hospital or the nursing home.
Oh, they thought me bringing him home. He was an easy patient to take care of them in the nursing home. So,
Yeah. But he was actually even in another state, wasn't he?
no, he was home for 6 months.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, he was home for 6 months.
Find it, that's it.
okay. Thank you for doing this, as
Yeah.
always.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming so far.
No,
Next,
it's all right.
I just didn't expect this many people.
No, it was good.